Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to talk about the movies. I am Skye Jethani. I am an author, speaker, pastor, co-host of the Phil Vischer podcast, and joining me, as always, Josh Lindsey.
Hey, everybody.
How are you doing, Josh?
I'm great, Skye. How are you?
Okay, if you guys are new to this podcast, this is only our third episode. We're still kind of in a pilot phase. We organized this discussion around a wedding. So the way it works is we talk about something old, something new, something borrowed, and something blue. So to begin today, Josh, we're talking about something old. This is usually a time when we talk about some old movie or older movie, television show, something we've rewatched recently that we either want to recommend or trash a second time. Do you have something that you've come with?
I do, yes. And just in the theme, I want to have a running theme with our something new. So I picked a movie, one of my all-time favorite comedies. Not my all-time favorite, but one of, is Galaxy Quest.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Spaceballs.
Well, Spaceball is more in line with Star Wars.
Yeah, it's a parody of that.
Yeah, and Galaxy Quest is making fun of Trekkies and the show Star Trek.
Yeah.
Starring Tim Allen, Sigourney Weaver, came out in 1999. Hilarious spoof on what it's like to be a famous actor, but your fan base are kind of the cosplay, the nerdy, wearing the pointy ears crew. And as it turns out, there really are aliens, and they seek out these actors to save them.
Yeah, I have to confess, I know of this movie, and I have heard a lot about the movie. I know the premise of the movie. I've never actually watched it.
Oh, I highly recommend it. Rotten Tomatoes gave it 90%.
Wow.
Yes. So, and they almost made a sequel, and they were actually moving forward with it. But Alan Rickman died, and they had to shut that down.
So it was recently they were going to do a sequel.
Yes, they were just moving forward with ideas and talking about it, and then he passed away, so they couldn't do it.
Oh, that's too bad.
As far as comedies go, it doesn't matter the genre, just comedies, hands down, it is one of the greatest.
See, I think that came out in 99. Mm-hmm. I was in the middle of seminary. And I didn't have a life. I didn't do anything. I didn't know that movies existed. So it's somehow in that vacuum of my existence, I did not get around to seeing it. My something old is not that old, but I've been traveling a lot lately. I've been on a lot of flights, and they had a free movie thing on one of these flights, and I rewatched the most recent James Bond movie, Spectre, with Daniel Craig, and it was really just to pass the time. It was a late night flight, and I was reminded why I didn't really like it.
Really? I was surprised. I liked it a lot more than you did. Why did you not like it?
Well, two reasons. Number one, and we'll get into this a little bit with the Star Trek discussion, I thought it was too derivative. You know, now that I don't know how many James Bond movies have there been, 25, 27, 30, something like that. There's so many characters and themes and bad guys, villains, stuff. They just drew so much from those old movies. Playing to the nostalgia, I wish they had done something a little bit more original. But secondly, and perhaps more importantly, even though I think Daniel Craig's a very good actor, and I'm a huge James Bond fan, I was basically raised on those movies, which may explain a lot. His depiction of Bond in all of his movies, all four that he did, he's so joyless. In the old Bond movies, I mean, Bond always got into fights and there was tough things, but there was always this twinkle in his eye, this sense that he was kind of enjoying what he was doing. Right. And with Daniel Craig, he's just grunting through. It's more like the Jason Bourne.
Well, I was just going to say, that's more in line with what we're used to today.
I get that Bond is supposed to be a tough guy, but I wish he had a bit more charm. That was Sean Connery back in the day. He was tough, but he had charm. He was suave and he was slick, and he was this very cosmopolitan man about town, almost in the Hugh Hefner 1950s playboy kind of. I mean, this is suddenly going downhill from the audience we're going after. But
I can't relate. Sorry,
like the Mad Men-ish almost kind of debonair thing. And with Daniel Craig, he's just like a gladiator. And he's this hired hitman who just has to do his job, and he's not happy about it. And there's just no joy in these movies. There's no sparkle to them, and that's the part that I miss. So anyway,
I could see that, but I like that about that.
Yeah, I miss. I wish they had taken less of the stories from the old movies and more of the tone. And I felt like they stole the characters and the story from the old movies, but they lost the tone.
Okay.
That's kind of where I'm at with those. Okay, so let's get into what we're actually here for, which is something new. And we apologize, this is a couple weeks behind, but it's summer, give us a break. There's things going on, vacations and whatnot. We both went and saw separately the new Star Trek movie, Star Trek Beyond. And this is the part of the show where we actually have a proposal, where we each make a proposal about what we think about this film, and then we can talk about and debate whether or not each of our proposals have any merit. So, Josh, your proposal for Star Trek Beyond
Star Trek Beyond, I propose, is the Democratic Convention of space movies.
Wow. I was not expecting to hear that. You're bringing politics into it.
I am. You want me to go ahead and dive into this?
Yeah, go ahead.
Right.
I can't compete with that.
Now, I did not watch either convention, Republican or Democratic.
So how can you compare it?
Well, I read about them.
All right.
And the obvious theme was togetherness. There were 4 days, and each day had a theme. 3 of the days were named United Together, Working Together, Stronger Together. And that was the theme in this movie, was about working together, because the bad guy was about himself. It was strength and pain. He saw weakness in unity.
Mm-hmm.
And this movie, I like the movie, but it was over the top, I thought, with all the lines they gave with that theme of togetherness and unity, and how we're going to win this battle as a group.
So to set it up a little bit, and spoiler alert if you haven't seen the movie, the crew of the Enterprise is in the middle of their 5-year mission, right?
Correct.
To explore distant, unknown worlds, galaxies, whatever that is. I'm not a huge Trekkie. And some of the crew are contemplating leaving. So Captain Kirk is thinking about getting off of the ship and doing something else.
Right.
And Spock is thinking it's time to help make little Spocks and repopulate New Vulcan or something.
Right.
So the underneath, there's this undercurrent of people are thinking about breaking up.
But part of it is it's one, the monotony, and there's this running theme of who am I?
Yeah.
And that's an important question he asks, because it's about just him,
right,
and what he wants. So go ahead.
And as the story plays out, what comes across is exactly what you're saying is we're a crew, and we need one another, and we're our family. We're a family together. And by the end of the film, it's, they're all linking arms again, and we're all going to go back out there, and we're sticking it out, and we're in this together.
Right.
So that togetherness theme really comes through.
Right. There are a lot of quotes. The bad guy, Crawl, says, unity is your weakness. So he's showing the opposite of that, right? Scotty says, you can't break a stick in a bundle. Crawl says, pain, not unity, made us strong. Kirk says, what would I do without you, Spock? So a lot of those lines, a lot of theme running through there of togetherness. And the convention had just ended the week prior when I saw this film. And as I was reading about it, I thought it was almost as if they had planned it. That'd be really hard, but I want to put it past him where, like, when the movie was released and when the Democratic Convention happened and these two themes colliding, I thought, wow, this is uncanny how similar the themes are.
So is there a political parallel? Are Trekkies Democrats because it's about togetherness and it's about progress in the future and a positive? And conversely, does that mean that Republicans are Star Wars fans because it's about returning to a galaxy far, far away, long, long ago?
Could be. I thought you were going to go to the road of where Republicans were, because the bad guy, he literally sucked the life out of people to live longer, right? Yeah. And it was all about himself. And because I won't give the
individualist,
right. Yes, that was his theme was individuality. The crew was about unity, and Kirk had to figure out, who am I?
Yeah.
And by the end of the movie, he's saying, it wasn't just me, never is. And so he gets to that realization that, it
takes a village.
Right.
Yeah. So this is basically a big propaganda piece for Hillary Clinton.
I think so.
What did you think? How do you think this fit into with the prior to rebooted Star Trek movies that J.J. Abrams had done?
Well, we're going to talk a little bit about this in our next segment, but first of all, I love the rebooted Star Trek movies. I'm not a Star Trek fan. I never watched the shows. I've seen most of the movies, and I find them entertaining. I don't really follow it or look forward to it.
You don't speak Klingon or anything?
No, none of that stuff. Never into the conventions. But if a movie comes out, and what really intrigued me was when Abrams, started making these films, and the first two that they rebooted were fantastic, very entertaining. This third one, Beyond, is a standalone film. It was a great summer blockbuster. Just kind of go inside a cold, air-conditioned theater, watch something on the big screen, adventurous, and you could leave and forget about it. Right, and
it's an escape.
It is an escape. That's all. It's not tied into, the ultimate goal is they're going to have 12 movies and they're trying to kill this bad guy.
You're not stepping in the middle of a univerove of characters and have to string it all together like a Marvel film or what DC's trying to do.
Right. It was just fun. It was entertaining. I mean, I love the actors, and it was very enjoyable.
It's what summer blockbuster movies used to be.
Yes. Yeah. So that by itself, I enjoyed. I didn't see this film because I'm a Trek fan. I saw this film because I'm a summer blockbuster fan, and it paid off.
I felt similarly. I was going into this movie with a little bit of trepidation, and here's why. Was it 2009 that the Star Trek reboot came out? Was it that long ago? 2011? I don't remember what year it was. When the original J.J. Abrams rebooted Star Trek film came out, I was thrilled. I thought, and I'm not a huge Trekkie either. I just enjoy the movies. I'm much more of a Star Wars fan. But I thought that was just brilliantly done because it paid homage to what had come before. It kind of created an alternate through time travel timeline that put all the characters in place, but then allowed them to have new adventures as they went forward without having to just rehash the old Star Trek storylines. So I thought they rebooted it brilliantly. I loved the aesthetic of it, the feel of it, the acting, the casting, all of that was great. When the second one came out, Star Trek Into Darkness, I was disappointed. And
you saw the movie.
I did see it. And I was disappointed with that one because if you haven't seen it, the main antagonist in it is Khan, who's one of the biggest antagonists from the original series. And again, it did a lot of derivative storytelling. It took the same storylines, they just updated them. Even some of the visuals were exactly the same as the old Star Trek Wrath of Khan movie. A character dies at the end. It's just, it's over and over and over again. It just played the same notes as the original. And I thought, oh, JJ, you didn't have to do this because you rebooted it and you set us up for a whole new adventure.
But now, isn't that what he's good at?
But that's exactly it, yeah. And then when you see the Star Wars reboot, he did the same thing. So I realized, okay, this is JJ's thing. He is a derivative filmmaker. He doesn't really make his own movies. He remakes other people's movies. And he's good at it. But I was kind of disappointed that Into Darkness wasn't more original, that it was a retelling of the Khan storyline.
Now, did you watch Into Darkness and think that, or did you have to go back and see?
Oh, no, I knew that because I knew Wrath of Khan pretty well.
I saw that film. That's one of the films I remember just being creeped out when they put the bug in that guy's ear. And remember, just he was like one of those big time bad guys. But I can't remember. I couldn't tell you the plot or anything.
So I remember it pretty well. I mean, there's one kind of iconic image from the original Wrath of Khan movie where the Enterprise is in a nebula. It's in some kind of cloud in space, and it rises up vertically out of the cloud. Yeah. They literally did that twice in Into Darkness. Once when it rises up out of the ocean, and then when it rises up out of a cloud. I'm like, okay, yeah, they're doing that one. And then at the end of Wrath of Khan, Spock dies, and he's in because he's saving the crew because he's in the radioactive chamber, blah blah. Well, in this one, it was Kirk who dies, and they do the whole glass on the hand on the glass wall with the live long and prosper crap, and and so it was exactly this. And I was like, oh, this is so disappointing because you set us up for a whole new adventure and you just retold an old one.
I'd like all Star Trek fans to direct comments directly to Skye.
That's fine, you can do that. So when I stepped into this movie, Star Trek Beyond, I'm like, okay, well, which old Star Trek movie are they going to redo this time? And I was really happy to see that they didn't do that. And I think part of the reason was J.J. Abrams was not the director, and he didn't write it. It was largely written by Simon Pegg, who played Scotty in the film. So I like the originality of the story. I like the theme that you've already pulled out here about the togetherness and figuring out the individualism versus the collective thing. I thought the action was great. I thought the settings were pretty cool. Like that space station with Yorktown, is that what it was called?
Oh, right, yeah.
I kept thinking about the mall over here in Lombard.
We have a Yorktown Mall, right?
So all that was cool. If I have one nitpicky thing, I felt like, and this is not a small thing, there's that old saying that a story is only as good as its villain. And I felt like this villain was a bit underdeveloped. Like he has, they at the end, they kind of rush through his backstory to kind of give it gravity, but it just felt...
Well, there was a level of mystery that they had to keep behind the curtain for the surprise at the end. And by the time you got there, there really wasn't much time to do anything.
I'm guessing there's a director's cut that probably has deleted scenes that will flesh this out more. I just didn't really care all that. He's just another bad guy trying to kill everybody.
Well, that's kind of been my feeling about Star Trek movies, period.
Right. But
for Star Wars, you've got, generally speaking, one main villain. Mm-hmm. In Star Trek, you've got
different
a variety of villains. Yeah. It's more about the crew and what they're up against. And you're always going to come across bad guys, but it's not like this major...
And maybe it is the summer blockbuster, and now every movie is a summer blockbuster all year long, but it always has to be this apocalyptic, villain who's going to destroy everybody unless you can get this one thing. And, and it's okay. How many times can you play that? But even there, that kind of a villain can work if they have a really good motivation. If there's a really clear and compelling character behind the villain that you almost sympathize with. You can understand why they're doing it. And this guy's like, really? You're upset for that reason? Like, that's why you want to destroy millions of people is because of that? And it just didn't quite work for me.
I could see it. It didn't bother me, but I see what you're saying.
I mean, overall, a good movie. Yeah. I just felt like if there was something I had to point out that was weak, I think it was that. And what's his name? Idris Elba was the guy who's hidden behind prosthetics most of the movie, but he's a great actor, so I wish they could use him better.
Yeah. Did you have a proposal?
My proposal was that this is, I think, the strongest of the recent set of Star Trek movies, apart from its weak villain.
Okay, got it.
Can I interject something real quick?
Yeah, Jason wants to interject something.
Hi, sorry. One thing that bothered me about this movie... going off that villain, I had to get this out. One thing that bothers me about this movie is that it's the third Star Trek movie in this series. Mm-hmm. And of course it's, again, one main villain.
Right. And
that's not really the message of the older Star Treks. Like, they kind of had that in some, like with Khan and everything, but it's just one main guy who somehow has some crazy amount of power.
Right.
It's kind of like...
That's a very good point.
Instead of like being against the Klingons or something like that?
Yeah, there's no like major thing they're going up against. It's one guy who somehow has a ton of power or a great super weapon.
That's a very good point. And that seems to be the theme too. It's in all these movies, it's Loki or it's Red Skull and I get it. You need to have a single villain that kind of represents all, but you're right. In the old Star Trek movies, it was you're going up against the Klingon Empire or you're going up against, you can almost see the difference between movies that were made in the Cold War era where there was kind of East versus West, capitalist versus communist. And now we're in the world of ISIS and terrorism where the lone wolf crazy person is the one we're worried about. And that seems to be coming through in our movies.
Are you a Trekkie, Jason?
A little bit.
Yeah.
That means he's a big Trekkie. They never want to admit it.
I haven't seen all the original ones. I've only seen a couple here.
Well, you were born after most of them, or all of them were made, right? I liked the original Trekkie stuff, and then I kind of phased out. That's a pun. During the kind of Next Generation and all that stuff, I didn't follow much of that at all. I do like this new series overall. I like the aesthetic of it, the feel of it, all that. It's great. So, okay. So I think your proposal was, say it again.
Star Trek Beyond is the Democratic Convention of space movies.
I will accept that proposal.
All right.
Because I think you're dead on about the major theme of community and interdependence and all that.
I didn't have to go to the convention. I got hit over the head with it at the movie.
There you go.
But I did enjoy the movie. If I never see it again, I'll be okay.
Okay, so that's something new. We're going on to something borrowed. This is when we lift a news item or an article from elsewhere or someone else's commentary on a film topic that is not original to us. And Josh, what do we have this week?
Well, an article briefly just came out just highlighting that they're going to continue with the Chronicles of Narnia, the next one being The Silver Chair.
All right, this surprises me.
Why?
For a couple of reasons. There's been 3 of these movies, right?
Yes, they did.
Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, Prince Caspian,
and the Voyage
of the Dawn Treader.
Yeah.
And Disney was behind those.
And Walden Media too.
Walden Media.
Yeah.
I didn't like any of those movies.
You didn't?
I did not.
Oh my goodness.
I'm so negative.
I thought they did fantastic with Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe. Not so much the third one. I was kind of bored in the third one. What was the second? Prince Caspian? Maybe the last two I didn't like as much.
Right, yeah. Okay, of the three, I'd agree with you that Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe was the strongest, but I didn't care for it. And we don't have to get in why. We're not doing a whole review here.
I'm with Skye.
There you go. But these movies, if people recall, especially when the first one came out, were super heavily marketed to Christian audiences and churches. I remember I wrote an article about this when Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe came out, but the marketing company hired by Disney to promote this in churches actually had a competition where if pastors mentioned Narnia in a sermon, they could submit a recording of that sermon for a chance to win a free family vacation to England.
Wow.
Yeah. How's that getting the mouse in the pulpit? Huh? So the whole marketing around it kind of made me sick to my stomach because it was so trying to get pastors into promoting this movie for them. Right. I think the reason they stopped making them is because they weren't doing all that well in the box office. They weren't that critically acclaimed, the latter ones.
But did they do okay in the box? I don't know how they did. I know they brought in over 1.6 billion worldwide.
Yeah, but
I don't know if that what that means. But
have you read all the books?
No.
The Silver Chair is a weird one to come back with.
Oh,
I mean, they're all weird after this, but I was very curious. And they're going to have a new cast, you said?
They kind of have to because all the kids are now adults, basically.
So, well, in the Silver Chair, there's only one kid from the original movie, original stories, who's kind of he only popped into the third book, I think. So I'm very curious what they do with this because how do they market it? Is it going to still be targeting Christian audiences? Is it going to be a widely released theatrical thing like a Disney level production, or is it going to be kind of one of these low budget, we'll just throw it to the Christians because they'll pay for anything?
No, they're already doing that with other film companies right now on Facebook. I keep getting these previews, multiple previews of Christian films that are coming out. There's a big wave of them.
Like what?
Well, it's Pure Flix, and there's one on a girl who wants to get married, but she can't find the love of her life. And there's one where these kids get bullied, and so there's a lesson on, kind of turning the other cheek. And there's one on a guy who his woman comes into his life, and he's a CEO, he's happily married, but this beautiful woman comes into his life through his business, and so he's tempted, and he doesn't have an affair. It's just they're dealing with the thought.
So these are all like morality lessons.
Yes.
Okay.
And I've seen 4 or 5 of them in like trailers in a month. Like,
yeah, but they tend to be low budget movies. They're not expensive to produce.
No. And they look low budget.
A Narnia movie, just because of the nature of the settings and the characters, they're expensive movies to make.
Right. And TriStar's doing it, and they'd make big films. So
yeah, we'll be curious to see how this goes. Yeah. Are you excited about it? You think it's a good development?
I am. Yeah, I am excited about it. But I'm always excited about big movies, And so I thought the last 3 films were great. I especially like the first one, The Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe. But yeah, I'm excited to see what they do with it.
Well, I did recommend you go back and read the book because
we are reading it right now with my children.
The Silver Chair.
All of them. We're going.
Well, when you get to Silver Chair, you'll obviously be thinking about how they're going to make this into a movie because it's definitely not one that jumps to my front of my mind as make a movie out of this. But we'll see what they do. I'm actually a little skeptical that it even gets released. I think they've announced this to gauge interest because there's no director attached to it. All they said basically is we have a script.
Right.
There's no director. There's no cast.
Well, these days we find out about these things way in advance,
right?
Compared to when we were kids. You never heard about these things until 6 months before they released the film.
Yeah.
And so now we hear, there's mention of them. Like I just read the other day, they're now making a sequel to Man of Steel. And so but I know that could change in 3 months.
Yeah. Well, it does fit the pattern of trying to build off of already well-known franchises, and there is some awareness of the Narnia franchise, so it makes sense that here's a story that hasn't been told from there yet. Maybe there's some people who will make this a viable business.
I bet it'll do well.
All right. Well, we'll see.
All right.
Okay, final segment. We did something old, something new, something borrowed. Now it's time for something blue. This is when we talk about something we've seen recently that either blew our minds or was really bad and blew chunks. So, Josh, what have you got?
Well, blew my mind is the Netflix series Stranger Things.
Yes. You're almost done with it.
There's 9 episodes and we have 1 episode left, and I'm dying to. I'm watching this with my wife, so our schedules have to line up to watch a TV show.
That's why you don't watch things with your wife. I'm in the middle of episode 4. Jason, you are interested but have not watched it yet. So we're gonna have to ruin some of it for you a little bit. We don't want to ruin it because it's too new. A lot of people haven't seen it. Right. Josh, help the audience understand what this series is.
Okay, so it's these 2 guys. I hope I said their name right. The Duffer Brothers, and they grew up watching Spielberg. And
these are the filmmakers. These are not the characters in the
correct.
Show.
Thank you. Yes,
Right,
these are the guys who created it. So fans of Spielberg, fans of Stephen King, they created a series that takes place in the 80s.
Mm-hmm. It's 1983, I think.
That sounds right.
In Indiana.
Yes. So it looks totally pulled out of the pages of E.T. or the Goonies. There are scenes that look like when they're riding their bikes, and I'm waiting for the bikes to fly up in the air or something like that, like an E.T. But so and there's great little Easter eggs in there with movie posters of the Dark Crystal and the Thing and different things in there. So it's a fun throwback, kind of a love letter to the 80s that has a sci-fi X-Files element where there's this mystery, what's going on, not really sure, the government's involved, and we think they're bad. And
without spoiling too much, we'll just set up a little bit what happens in the first episode. There's these 4 boys, middle school age boys, who are absolutely brilliantly cast.
Yes, that's the best part of the show.
I could have I was that age right around that time, and I could have completely seen myself being like one of these kids.
Yeah.
And you even like Goonies, you have one minority kid. You got one slightly overweight kid who talks funny and is kind of the comic relief. You got the nerdy kid. I mean, it's just fit. So anyway, in the first episode, one of these 4 boys goes missing, and they're trying to figure out what happened to him. And the other thing that really kind of caught me by surprise is the mom of the missing kid
Winona Ryder.
And I did not realize it was her until, 15 minutes into the first episode when they actually did the titles.
Okay.
And her name appears. Like, oh my gosh. I mean, I looked her up on whatever it is, Wikipedia.
Yeah.
And for how old is she? She's 44 years old, right? She's just a couple years older than me. And first of all, her acting in this is brilliant.
She's great.
She is fantastic. She looks older than 44 years old in this, or let's just say it ain't the years, it's the mileage. I mean, she plays this really neurotic, kind of crazy, poor Midwestern mom, and just nails it. But I always think of Winona Ryder as the star with Johnny Depp back in the 90s in those kind of romantic comedy movies.
Right.
Or back in Christian Slater, remember Heathers?
Very dark, weirdo.
Yeah, but or even Beetlejuice, but attractive, young, and I'm like, I haven't seen her in forever. I was like, wow, she's playing the mom.
Yeah,
and is just striking in this.
And she's great because she does
an Emmy for this.
She does, because she freaks out, but at the same time, she's very strong. And so she's not just one dimension. She does a great job.
And the 80s vibe throughout the whole thing, and not just in the characters and the settings and the bikes and the toys and all that, but the music, the synthesizer instrumental stuff.
The intro to Stranger Things.
Crazy.
It's like from Tron or something.
It is so, if you are a kid from the 80s, you will love this. But then there is that Stephen King-ish, creepy.
Right.
I'm, like I said, halfway through, I'm in the middle of episode 4, and I don't know what the heck is going on. If it wasn't for some of the more adult moments, I would totally have my middle school son watching this.
There is some uncomfortable adult moments, and I thought the same thing. Like, I want to show this to my kids, especially my older daughter, but then there's some scenes like, I don't want to.
Right. So be warned, there's that, but it has blown my mind so far. And I'm really hoping, I've always been disappointed with Stephen King movies. Like, the endings always disappoint me.
All of them?
Whatever ones I've seen. Not all of them, but some
there's
of them.
a bunch you like.
There's some that are good, but there's some.
Shawshank Redemption?
Yeah, no, that doesn't count.
Stand By Me?
No. I'm talking about like the horror sci-fi kind of Stephen King stuff.
Yeah.
Like, did you ever see the original It miniseries or whatever that was.
Oh, on TV?
Yeah.
No, thank you.
Anyway, so I'm really hoping that this has a satisfying conclusion.
Well, that's just it. I have not seen the end.
Right.
And Angie and I are speculating, will they have a season 2? And I have not looked online to see if they will or not. But yes, that is a big question mark. But I really hope it does have a satisfying ending.
Yeah. So if you love...
wrapping back around, did you realize Winona Ryder was in Star Trek?
Yes, and she played Spock's mother. And I remember that.
Sure.
And that creeped me out too.
Which Star Trek?
In the
2009.
The new rebooted one when Vulcan gets destroyed.
Oh, man.
You didn't realize that was Winona Ryder? She apparently now has to play the mom in any movie that attracts nerds.
She was in Beetlejuice.
Yeah, I guess she's got the cred.
Yeah.
But I thought in the Star Trek movie, they did a lot of makeup to make her look old enough to be Spock's Earth mother.
I either forgot or I missed that.
There's the picture.
Holy cow.
She's clearly, now show a picture of her from Stranger Things.
Does not look the same.
We're looking it up right now. I want to get
incredibly interesting audio.
Isn't it great?
We're going to take a break while Jason types.
Yeah, or if you're listening to this in a place where you can Google on your phone or something, doesn't she just look like? Look at this one with the axe. I mean, she is just a bizarrely.
I highly recommend checking this out.
Yeah.
This has blown my mind. This is great.
It's a great show so far.
But but one of the things that helped was I went into this with low expectations.
Right.
No one I know had seen this. I hadn't seen it advertised, rarely marketed. I read one article about it. I can't believe it came across Angie's radar. I've talked to a lot of people and they haven't even heard of it. So,
well, if you haven't heard of it yet and you're listening to this podcast, you're welcome. It is interesting that Netflix is the source of these newer kind of phenomenon in television and different formats and different series, but I'm really hoping this has some legs to it and does good things and it doesn't drag out too long and get bad. Like it has a clear ending. It's not going to be like a Lost where it just goes on and on and on,
Right.
and then eventually you find out everyone was dead the whole time.
I do want to point out for any other 80s fans out there, Matthew Modine is in this, which that's a big throwback to the 80s as well. So he looks quite different as well.
Yeah, it's really good. It has so far blown my mind. I'm really happy with it. I hope everyone else checks it out. Okay, so that we're reaching the end of our time together. Thank you guys for listening. Again, if you are listening to this, it's probably because you have contributed to the Phil Vischer Patreon page, which supports the Phil Vischer podcast and helps pay for people like Jason, who does all of our technical work. He's waving. We are going to do a couple more of these podcasts, pilot episodes, we'll see. And eventually, again, with feedback from you guys, if it's strong enough, we will put this out for the world and including these past episodes so anybody can listen to them.
I would like to say feedback is great. So just pour on the comments, good, bad, negative, whatever. I think it's been really helpful.
And they can be on two fronts, either the podcast in general, or if you have specific responses to things we've talked about on the podcast, the Star Trek Beyond movie, any of the segments. If you're in the midst of watching Stranger Things, give us your thoughts on that as well. If you have comments, put them on our Patreon page. You can also get me on my Facebook page or on Twitter, just Skye Jethani. If you can't spell it, good luck. Josh, I assume you have some sort of social media presence as well.
Yeah, good luck.
Good luck finding Josh.
I'm out there.
His parents didn't have the foresight to give him a name with a clear URL available.
No.
But you can get us online, talk to us, or forever hold your peace. So thanks for listening to the movie proposal. We're glad that you've joined us. You may now kiss the episode goodbye.